Hey everybody, Phil here with another Rails tutorial. Yes, tutorial I said. And today what I'm going to be looking at is using ChartKick, which I've been using for years, but now using ChartKick with Rails 7 and Stimulus to handle clicks on the charts to do stuff. Take a look. Hey everybody, coming to you from my secret bunker somewhere in the wilds of Canada, not from my usual Japan. And let's take a look at the screen here and get on with it. So as you can see, I've got a Rails version 7042, which I think is the latest 704, and we're gonna zip over to VS Code. We're gonna make the screen a little bit bigger because I know you guys like that. And I've got my Rails 7 Bootstrap test app. So that's obviously running Rails 7 with Bootstrap installed, and that means it's kind of doing not the usual Rails out of the box. So we're doing a Rails new with the CSS of Bootstrap. I've chucked in simple form and sorbet because that's the way I am. And we're going to go, and first thing we're going to do is open up a terminal. I don't know why these things, you know what's silly about terminal, I'm just going to whine about it for a second, is that when you zoom the font, it makes the window bigger until the point where the window kind of disappears off the side. So here we are. Let's go to my test projects and Rails 7 Bootstrap, and let's do a git checkout -b Stimulus ChartKick, and let's get on with things. So all we need to do now, the nice thing is ChartKick and does not require jQuery. I don't have jQuery installed in this right now, so we don't need jQuery, which saves us a JavaScript library. You can do all of this funkiness that I'm about to show you without putting that in, or I hope so. Otherwise I'm going to have to redo this video. So what we can add is gem ChartKick. Put a blank line, and let's do a, notice how it's suggested there, this gem group date, which is handy, but we're not going to use it right now. Check that out if you want some neat additions to your database and grouping by things. But I'm going to use tally here because I showed it before. So that will have installed ChartKick. And of course, being as we are, we need to add ChartKick and chart.js into our yarn. And then we need to go, just do that again because I don't know if I saved it. Yeah. And then you need to go to our application.js. And by the way, don't forget to do this. Out of the box, everyone seems to suggest doing this import stars bootstrap, but if you don't do this, you can't use the bootstrap JavaScript control stuff. But what we want to do is import, not with a colon, ChartKick, chart.js. And that will bring ChartKick into our application. Sorry, my brain's a little bit foggy. Let's drink some coffee. So just to prove that it works, let's do a simple Rails G controller chart test with an index, and that'll do that. And what did it put in roots? We got chart test index. Good enough. Let's go over to ChartKick and just throw in a quick example, just so I want to prove to you that it's working. We don't need that. Let's go to index chart test. And we'll just do like A, 1, B, 2. Save that and let's run it. Proc file. And there we're running. We go here and ChartKick test index. No, because it's called chart test. Why didn't I call it ChartKick test? There we go. So we know that we have ChartKick installed, and all is good. But you know, I hate to do these kinds of silly demos, so let's kind of get on with making it a little bit more realistic. I'm going to create a resource, you know, that was on master because we're always dealing with e-commerce things. We're just going to call this purchase, item name, quantity, scintillating video here, purchase amount, float, purchased at date time, maybe a status. Yeah. Okay. So there we go. We've got that. And while we're at it, let's make the root path to be purchases index. And let's, you know, nothing is good without data. So why don't we do what I did last time, because you guys seem to like that. Let's use ChatGPT. I love using this thing for generating test harnesses. I'm gonna have to blur this out, aren't I? Because you guys, a bunch of hackers out there. So let's do this. Maria, create a seed file for Ruby on Rails that generates a lot of fake product purchase records. Including a purchased, I like doing this just to see how good it is, purchased at as a date and time, a purchase amount, a purchased item name, purchased quantity, and the status of the order. Let's see what it does. Here's a sample seed file for Ruby on Rails that generates 100 fake product purchase records. So we're going to need to install Faker. Well, while it types itself out, let's install Faker. And we'll do a bundle over here. There we go. So it's going to create us a new purchase object, which is what I created. It's going to set a purchase tab anytime between a couple days ago and now, and a purchase amount of some price, an item name of a product name, and some amount between 1 and 10, and some purchase status, which I don't like, so we'll change that. It's funny it says PHP up here. That's a bit of a bug. Seed data. And so we're gonna do, instead of that, let's do completed, shipped, not that this matters at all, delivered, and maybe what I would do instead of this, because then all the names are going to be different, why don't we do something like this? Product name is 20 times map of a product name. And then we can just do this dot sample. And then we'll have 20, just 20 product names, and we'll do that 200 times instead. And so now what we can probably do here is a Rails DB. Let's do a drop DB create and then DB seed. Let you get everything in good standing. That's interesting. Oh, isn't it funny? DB migrate and DB seed. All right, so yes, I've taken 10 minutes just to get this thing going. Here we are. And so now what we can do, let's close everything off, close all, and go to our views, and there's purchases. It doesn't create anything because I didn't tell it to create anything, but we can create an index.html.erb, and we can create a column chart, and we can pull that out of the purchase. We'll just do this for now in the very bad form. In the actual ERB, we're going to pluck purchased at, and then we're going to map, so we just have a date. So this is essentially grouping everything together by date. And then we'll tally, and we'll sort, actually, sort, and then tally. Tally, if you don't know what it does, it tells you how many times something happens in an array. So if you have 1, 1, 1, 5, 5, 2, 1, 6, it'll say, oh, you had 3 1s, 2 5s, that kind of thing. And it'll return a hash with key value. So that's tally. I put a little thing about tally on my Substack. So we have this column chart. So we're going to find all of the purchase objects. We're going to get the purchased at, and we're going to map that to a date. And we're going to see in a second, I think, that I kind of messed that up. So that's because I didn't do a wide enough date range. It doesn't look very nice. Let's change that seed file to, let's say, 2 weeks ago, and 12 hours ago. And let's run all that again. It's just easier just to blast it, do the whole thing. Here we go. Let's go back. Great. And that's nice. So we've got the chart. You know, the chart's doing exactly what ChartKick, what you would expect it to do. Great. But that's the easy stuff. So let's go over here, and maybe what I want to do is a table, and yeah, let's do a table. And we've got Bootstrap, so let's add a table class, and maybe a table striped, and a table small, because we've got a lot of data, and we'll give it a little bit of padding on the top. Do that, and we're just going to have a t-body. I'm not going to bother with doing a silly no, I'm not going to do that. T-body, and what we will just do is iterate over some purchases. Yes, I know. Purchase end, and we're going to just render out the purchase. What's it doing there with all these extra things? Okay, so now if we go to the purchase controller, I'm going pretty fast because this is all still kind of setup stuff, you know. Def index, and let's do purchases. Those purchase dot all. I'm not going to paginate or anything fancy like that. So we should have a table. Oh, and it says there's no purchase. This is so cool. You know, this is something I didn't really realize. That when you say something like this, it'll automatically look for a partial in your directory that's named the same as the object. You can change that, but it automatically will do that. I'm not going to type all this out, so here it is. So we're going to show the purchase stat, the item name, and the currency. And bing. So we have all of our purchases there. So that's nice, but you know, when wouldn't it be nice to click on the chart and filter? So if I wanted to see everything on the 1st of January, I would click on this and this would change to just be the 1st of January. That's, okay, 15 minutes in, that's what the crux of this video is going to be. So you're asking yourself, Phil, how do you do that? Now, you can do this in straight JavaScript. All right, so we've got this chart. If we look at, bring you over here. If we look at the chart, we can see it's got a chart ID of chart 1. Now, let's minimize this. It's got an ID of chart 1. Let's change that anyway. ID of the purchases chart. Okay. So what we could do is have a script down here. This is kind of what I would have done before. A script, and you know, I would say document get element by ID of purchases chart, and then in the on click, because ChartKick provides events, I would write a function here that would, well, this thing's pretty much knows what you're going to do, but let's grab the purchases chart and let's get ChartKick charts, yes, a purchase chart, and you need to get the chart. I do this so much that, or other people do it, that Copilot knows it. So we're going to grab the purchase chart, and this is incorrect. This is the old way of doing it. So this is written by GitHub Copilot, which is out of date. Const points equals purchases chart. Yes, I'm looking at my notes here. Get elements at event for mode. That's what it is now. Event nearest, yes, intersection true. And so that's going to get the point that you click. Any of you who used to write actual software back in the day, not web software, might recommend this. I used to write that kind of stuff. Let's get rid of this crap. And so if we get any points, in other words, if we clicked, which we should have, let's grab the label, because you'll get a data set. On the purchases chart, you have all the chart data, and you can say, okay, well, get me this index of the labels and the data, and points length will tell you where it is that you printed. And I'm just going to print this out. So when I click on this, first of all, let's move this down. No, not that. Okay, forget that. Inspect. Where is it? Oh, it's over there. Let's put it at the bottom for now. And move it down. Move this down. Actually, I don't care about that. I just want to see console. Get element by ID is not a function. Document. Get element by ID. Ah, by. Okay. So click on that. And can't read the properties. Do I get points? Ah, yeah, the first point is that. And purchases chart is purchases chart. Purchases chart. Purchases chart. Purchases chart. Let's just make sure I have all the spelling the same. And it gets a chart object, gets points. So let's just console log the points just for the sake of argument. Is that? I'm going to copy my example because maybe I just did something stupidly wrong. There we go. So I had done something stupidly wrong. What had I done wrong? Oh yeah, I used Copilot. That's what I did wrong. It's not underscore index and underscore dataset index anymore. It's actually just index. So let's refresh that. There we go. And we can see that it's pulling out the number and the data. The number, I clicked on the 26th. Did I? Yeah, 26th, and there were 16 orders. 29th, there were 9 orders. So we could do some stuff in here, use Ajax, reload it, but we're not going to do any of that. So I've just wasted your time. What we're going to do is do it with Stimulus. So let's Rails G Stimulus generate a stimulus controller called purchases chart. I'm not a stimulus expert, so maybe I'm going to be doing stuff wrong here, but let's open up that chart controller. And okay, before we open up the chart controller, we've got that. Let's not do this stuff on here first. We need to do this stuff on the index first. Where are you? So div, and we're going to wrap the whole chart and table in a single controller. That may not be the nicest way, but it's the fastest way for a demo to do that. And the data controller is going to be that purchases chart. And yeah, so we're going to wrap everything in that. Let's move everything inside. Missed one. You know, and while I'm at it, I don't like that div class equals card. I love cards. Just going to move that inside a card. Let's get the formatting right. And so right now we've got, there we go, it's inside of the card. Get a little space. Sorry. There we go. Alrighty. And so what we need to do is put the chart. First of all, we want to connect the chart to the stimulus controller. So we have an ID of purchases chart. So let's set data purchase chart ID value to equal purchases chart, so we know what it is. I think I might be doing this wrong, but this is the way I'm doing it. Let's see. So yeah, we would put in here, let's do a static value of the ID as a string. So we're going to have some access to that. So when we, inside of the stimulus controller, we know what ID our chart is, and then we can do a similar kind of thing like we did in the plain JavaScript. We can say ChartKick charts of ID this value. How can I demonstrate that? Because it's actually quite complicated. So what we were doing before, let's get the chart. We need the chart config just to add stuff in here. So the easiest way is just get chart object config, and then I don't know what that all is about. Config dot options dot on click equals, now we can do a function of event native active. There we go. And if the native length, which is kind of the data that comes, that's the click, you know, the actual click like we had before. I don't know what that, we don't want that. I don't even know why I'm using Copilot, because it's wrong. So we want to get that's the kind of the x-axis. Index is going to be that. And we can get the label, just like we did before. Label is the chart. Get chart object is correct. Data, labels, there. And we can do a console log in here. And we can see we've got the label. Whew. Okay, let's refresh. Now with any luck, we're going to be able to click on that. I think I need to restart the server. Okay. And probably what it is, it's not connected because I'm always messing up that. Purchases chart. Purchases chart. ID. That. My ID is that. Let's just see if we connect here. Anyway, because maybe we don't even connect. And no, we don't. So I did something very simply wrong here. Data controller purchases. Oh. This kind of infuriates me a little bit about. There it is. Cannot read property of undefined. Okay, so the ID is that. ID is that. Purchase chart controller. And we've got the ID value. And the ID value. And, well, let's, console log is your friend. This ID value. And you can see it's empty. So that's not been set up correctly. So purchases chart ID value. There we go. And we cannot set properties of undefined on click. So I'm doing something not quite right there. There It's options. Holy cow. There we go. And we can see we're getting the label now. Great. So what do we want to do? We want to filter this when we've got the label. And that's easier said than done. And the reason I'm doing this video is because that is what took me a long time to figure out. And yes, I know I'm 30 minutes in. You're probably saying, why didn't you cut to the chase? Because you needed all the preamble. So let's do a load chart here. And I'm going to do a console log of load chart. And what I would, of course, like to do is this dot load chart, right? That's what you'd like to do. Now watch what happens when we try this. This dot load chart is not a function, because inside of here, this points to the chart. So we need somehow to be able to call out to the controller. And that's what's a little bit tricky. So what I ended up doing, there was there were 3 different ways you could possibly do that. But this one seemed to work the best for me. It seems to be a bit hacky, if you ask me. But what we're redoing is remapping on the outside this, which is the controller, to a variable called this. And then inside, we can say this load chart. It's so simple, but it took me a while to figure out. Now load chart is being called. And instead of, I'm going to put the date filter as a string, and I'm going to set that here. So we're going to, this date filter value to be the label. Load chart called. Oh, it had it with date filter, this date filter. And we should see that in here now. There we go. Load chart called with date filter, that. Get rid of that. Everyone complains I do too much console logging and everything. So we've done it. We've replicated our JavaScript function using a stimulus controller. As far as we went with the JavaScript, but let's move on. So let's actually pull in the data and refresh that area. That's what you're here for, is the good stuff, right? So what we need to do, I'm not going to do that. Let's pass in a URL of string, and we're going to create, so data purchases, do it right this time, chart of URL value, and then we need a URL value here. So purchases data, for want of a better term, and we'll add that into the roots. And so resource purchases, and we'll do a get of purchases data on the collection. And then here, what we'll do, we'll pass in, what would that be called? Rails roots, and let's grep for data. And there it is. So it's called that, so we can say purchases data purchases path, or URL. Let's do path. Okay. And I'm going to add back in one of my console logs. And so we can see with URL that. Let's just load it in and see. There we can see it's being called with our URL of this. So that means all we need to do down here is fetch this URL value with a date filter. This will work in this case, but what I would prefer to do for the sake of completeness is actually make it like this, with date filter that. There we go. And that'll go out and then call a URL using that. And we can see that here. Let's just refresh. And then when I click on the chart, I've done something. It's got a red thingy there, so I didn't do another one. There we go. Is that right? There we go. Let's reload it. Click on the chart. You know, today I'm not doing it. There, params. Reload it again. There we go. And if we go and look, we can see purchase data was called with the date filter of this. So that means all we need to do now in our controller is in purchases data. Let's get the date filter. Params date filter. Yeah, that's fine. And then we want to get all the purchases, first of all. Purchases all, we'll order by purchased at descending. So that'll get all of them. And then if we have, I bet Copilot will figure this part out. If we have a purchase at, if we have a date filter, because it's going to say if date filter present here. If we have a date filter, what I want to do is find all the purchase stats where we're going to date, time, parse, date filter, and we've actually, no, we've already done it, right? Buggers. There we go. Date, parse, date filter. Now that should only get the dates of that. Let's just click on it and got a date filter, date filter, date filter, date filter. Okay. The one thing I don't have is a view. So probably need to create a new purchases data HTML ERB. And that can be similar. Where is it? To the index, just for the sake of argument. We're going to do that. And you're going to see what the problem is in 1 second. Okay, done that. So now it returns just the list. Click on that. And yes, you can see that it's select purchases from purchases where the purchase date is that. And that's not right because the purchase date is not that. What I need to do is we have in the record we have a date time. So we need to date time, parse this out and say beginning, oh god, beginning, oh my god, beginning of day, date time is that, there we go. And so we'll do the date time, beginning of day to date time, end of day. And now let's click on that again, get a 500 error. And that's because you saw me, I struggled. Beginning of day. And now you can see it's going to look between the beginning of that time and the end of that day. We're going to pull everything back. Now it's great, except you say, wait a minute, we've got all the data here. Yeah, that's because we didn't actually put this into anything with the fetch. And to put something into the fetch, we need to set a target. So where are we? We don't need you. No, don't need you. We don't need you. We don't need you. In here, first thing I'll probably do is we'll do a div on this. And we'll give it an ID of just purchases. I know I'm using similar IDs. And we'll do data, purchases, chart, target will be purchases. Maybe there's a nicer way of doing that, but move this up and in. And so now we have all of this inside of a target. So we can add a static of targets. And I think we just call this purchases. And then we've done the fetch already. So when we get the response, and we need just the text because we're actually rendering the data, rendering the thing, then we can set the HTML of the purchases target to be the inner HTML, or the inner HTML of the purchase target to be that HTML that gets returned. And again, we don't have a thing there. So I hope you're following that. We're going to go out, we're going to fetch it. The server is actually going to render HTML because we're doing a regular GET request here. And then if we have a response, we'll take the response and we'll take the, and we'll, with the response, we'll get out the text. We'll call the text HTML, and then we'll stuff that HTML into that target, replacing the contents. So what should happen, fingers crossed, I don't believe it will, is that when I click on here, we should see 11 records only from the 28th. And what I'm going to do is refresh. When we click on here, holy cow, there we have it. 28 records. So let's get rid of this now. And if I click around, you can see that it is loading the data from that time. So there you go. We have an interactive chart using Stimulus. I talked a lot, which is the reason it took 45 minutes, but it's not really that much stuff. You know, kind of to recap, I have a recap over here. Where are you? Here it is. To recap, we, you know, create the chart, create the table. We wrap all of that in a controller. We add an on-click method to the chart when we connect to the controller. And that on-click method will call a fetch that will load the data, and then we will stuff that data into a target that we've set also on the controller. Hope you found that interesting. For me, this was really cool because it was to take something that I've been doing this thing with ChartKick for years and years, using JavaScript or jQuery and all the rest of it, but to do it pure Stimulus, one controller, simple view like that is pretty cool. So I hope you think so. Like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. And if you want more Rails, I'm looking at the thing, not there. If you want more Rails info, why don't you drop me a line? I've got a Substack, I've got Medium, I got it all. And if you want somebody to chat with about your Rails projects, just drop a comment. I'm here in Canada for now. See you soon. Bye.